guys, it's Katie here with Life the Mundane, and today I'm going to share with you guys 10 things that you need to know about Biblioplan's history. We are in our third year of using Biblioplan in our homeschool, and I'm excited to share some of the things that I have learned by using this curriculum over the past few years. What I'm about to share is not specific to any particular level. It's more in general about what you will find in any of the textbooks. So let's get started. The first thing you should know is that Biblioplan is a history curriculum that is working in a 4-year cycle. That means that it's designed for your children to go through it and then back through it again. So they'll go through history in 4 years and then they'll start back at it again, but at a different level. This allows your children to be reintroduced to topics, to hang that new information on hooks that have already been well established in the past, and allows them to maybe get to some of the things they didn't get to last time. I feel like a lot of times with curriculum, people want to do all the projects or all the extras and all of the things, and it becomes overwhelming and too hard to keep up with. But when you know you're going to go back through it again, you can rest at ease that if we don't get to it now, we can just get to it later. The second thing you should know is definitely more than just history. This curriculum is designed to incorporate on its own, utilizing their textbooks, history, it is utilizing geography, and it is utilizing church history. So it's going to cover all three of those things just with using their textbook. Now, in addition to that, it has recommendations, and I highly recommend adding literature into this. And it's got extensive book lists broken down by age, grade, broken down by topic, ones to read as read alouds, best ones that you're going to make sure you get to. So literature can definitely be involved in this, as well as you have the option to add in writing components to it and can take the geography even a step further and timeline options as well. Now we'll get to more of those options here in a second, but on its own, it's easily going to cover church history, and geography. And then of course, I would recommend adding in that literature component regardless of whether you choose to add in or expand on the other component. The third thing that you should know is that it is family style, but tiered. I think this is important for people to understand. When you purchase the curriculum, you're going to get the Lesson Plan Plus, or the Family Guide is what it will be called. And in this guide, it's going to have lesson plans and instructions and a breakdown of everything you need to know from kindergarten all the way to 12th grade, which is incredible. As a teacher, having this resource has been so helpful. Having the literature recommendations, having movie recommendations, audiobook recommendations, podcasts, articles, things like that I can read or do alongside my history has been so helpful. It also breaks down for you exactly what your child should be reading in their textbook or doing with any of the supplemental materials that you choose to use. That being said, it does not mean that your kindergarten through 12th grader is going to be doing all of the same things all of the time. It's all going to be coordinated, so you're going to be learning the same information, but at an age-appropriate level. So the Remember the Times textbooks that Biblioplan offers are designed for kindergarten through 6th grade. Now, I would say you could definitely stretch that up a little bit if you wanted to, but they're designed for kindergarten through 6th grade. The way this works is if you only have kindergarten and 2nd graders, you might choose to paraphrase some of the information or even skip certain sections for your kids. It's definitely going to be more simplified for them. If you have only older kids, so you have 2nd graders to 6th graders, you might read all of this to them, or you might have them read a portion themselves. You also have different options as far as questions that you can ask and dig deeper into the information, which we'll get to more of that here in just a second. If you have 8th graders through 12th graders, they have a companion guide. They have an older textbook specifically for your teens that they are going to be able to read. And again, it's going to follow the same information, the same timeline. So you're going to be learning about the same things, but definitely way more in depth. The book for the high school students is either usually 2 books that are these sizes, or it's one giant book. So understand it's definitely more information, but I like the fact that it's tiered, that you can learn it all together, but you are also having those age-appropriate divisions without you as a parent having to figure out what those are. Number 4 is that it is a book-heavy curriculum. Like I said, it does have a lot of literature recommendations, but it's incredibly flexible. So there's no one telling you you have to read this at a specific time or that you have to read this many books. It was never designed, ever, to do all of this at one time. Again, because it is a cyclical program that you're going to go back through again, the idea is pick a few books for this season. pick a few books that you already have, pick books that are available at your library, and then discard the rest, and you can get to those in future years or never, and that's okay. They just wanted to give you lots of different options. The fifth thing you should know is that Biblioplan puts church history and your traditional history right side by side. So this is something that very few history curriculums do. Usually you have a history curriculum and you have a church history curriculum, but the different chapters of each book are divided into sections. So for instance, in chapter 1 of the medieval history book, you're going to find the Western world after the fall of Rome. So that's obviously talking about more what you would see in a traditional history book. And so it's going to have several pages on that, but then it'll have a section on the early Christian church. And you're going to learn a little bit more about that church history. And then finally, you're going to always usually end your chapter with some kind of geography lesson that's going to tie those in together. Number 6 is there's a lot of extras, but you don't need to buy them all. I've said this, but I'm going to say it again. I'm going to show you guys a few of the supplemental resources that you can get for each level, but you don't have to have them all. In fact, it's actually recommended not to use them all because it would take far too long to get through history. The idea is to pick what works for you and your family and your season. Some of these additional resources are things like the timeline. These are really, really cool because they have the pictures already printed out for you. They have the descriptions underneath it already for you. They literally say, paste this on week 15. When you get to week 15, you're going to put these pictures into your timeline. And then the timeline is actually here. And it says here, paste this picture here. So it makes it really, really easy to use in your home if you want to do a timeline. I have tried other timelines before, and this is definitely the easiest one to utilize in your homeschool. But if you've been looking for a timeline resource, this is a great one. Another supplemental resource that they offer is the hands-on history units. I personally really like to get these, but these are not required by any stretch of the imagination. I have some of these that I have actually spiral bound. I do prefer to have them spiral bound than to have the fixed binding for them, but they just have different hands-on activities, exactly what it sounds like, for each and every one of the chapters. So it will have things like, all right, in week 26, you're gonna do a tar and feather collage, or you're going to make a specific recipe from this time period. You're gonna hold a fencing tournament, or you're going to do Starry Night. You're gonna do your own version of this famous painting. It has different games that you can play. Sometimes it'll have board games that you might already have on your shelf that'll tie into that particular time in history, or they'll have fun games that kids would play in a different country or at a different time frame. So my kids have really loved this. If you are doing a homeschool co-op, this is a fantastic book to get for whatever level you're doing in history. And we've actually done this for a couple of years now in co-op, where we pick through these different activities for our co-op classes. So everyone does the history on their own, then we come together and we do the activities for reinforcing the learning. They also have these question books, and you can get these digitally or physically, that are the cool history for littles, cool history for middles, or they have cool history for the older kids. And so what these are different questions. You could do these orally and discuss them with your kids. You could have them fill in the different answers. I like to get them digitally so I can print out a copy for each of my teens. I don't use them for the younger years, but I print them out for each of my teens, and it has questions for them to fill in as they're reading. And at the end, it will have optional writing opportunities. In high school, I make my kids choose from at least one of the essay question options that they have to answer to get them to practice writing and sharing that information. They even have some challenge questions for older kids, maybe that are not going to be information that you're just going to immediately find in the textbook, but are going to be things that we more conceptualize, right? Based on what you've read, what do you think about X, Y, and Z? So on and so forth. So again, a lot of neat things that you can get. An additional resource is they do have extra maps and geography resources if you want to expand that version of this curriculum to get a little bit more formal geography. I have not done that in the past, but I do have several friends who have and who have really, really loved it. So that is another option as well. But the point is to pick and choose what works for you. If you want to know my personal recommendation, I would say you need to have the lesson plan book. That's kind of the teacher book. You need to have the textbook for whatever age group you have. Either remember the ages for those 6th and under, or even 8th and under if you've got maybe some special needs, or that older child book for the teens and high schoolers. one of those books, or two, I guess, if you have kids in both like I do. And then you want the teacher's book. And then if I had to add on just one extra, it would be on those hands-on history with those activities. But pick and choose, start small your first year, and then you can build from there. Number 7 is it's very open and go if you want it to be. It might feel like with all these pieces, there's no way it can be open and go, but again, that teacher's book gives you everything outlined. I'm gonna show you guys a quick look inside. So for instance, in week 18, you'll see here that they're gonna tell you in the Remember the Ancient Times, so if you have this grade of kiddos, K through 8, then you're gonna read on day 1 this part of the book. Then day 2 this, then day 3 this. And it's very, very simple. If you want to use other resources, so let's say you want to read a little bit from Story of the World or Mystery of History and you don't want to use their core textbooks, they even have suggestions of what you could read there for the 3 days. They have additional living literature down here. So it's very customizable, family read alouds, hands-on activities from that hands-on activity book, and optional reading or movies that you might want to get into. The idea is to just stick most of the time with this up here. Just stick with what are you supposed to read each day. And then when you're ready, you can add in any of these other elements that you want on a regular basis or even on a temporary basis. Number 8 is it is only designed for 3 days a week. The beauty of this is you can alternate this with like a science curriculum, which is what we've done in the past. So we've done 1 day of history, 1 day of science, back and forth. Or you can expand it. You can draw it out. So if you want to do these additional resources, or maybe you want to read for 3 days and have that last day be a hands-on activity day. Or maybe you're working with much younger kids and you want to read much smaller sections each day. You can definitely drag it out to 5 days or more if you desire, but it only takes about 3 days. The 9th thing that you're going to want to know is that there is audio resources. We love to have the audio textbook for both the younger years and the older years. And for my older teens, a lot of them, because they've struggled with dyslexia, listen with their ears and with their eyes at the same time. I want them to follow along because there are a lot of rich pictures and graphics and things that are gonna help them understand the information that they need to physically see in the textbook. But I also don't want that to ever be a barrier to learning, so they can listen and follow along. For my younger ones, we will sometimes do that as well, but oftentimes we'll use the audio resource when we have to be on the go and we can't get to our history lesson by mom reading aloud for that particular day. So I like to have that flexibility to be able to read some, to be able to listen to some, and so on and so forth. Number 10, I mentioned earlier, but they do have printable resources, digital resources of almost everything that they have to offer. They have digital. So we actually use, I guess, another supplemental resource I didn't mention earlier was they actually have printable coloring books. And so you can buy physical copies of them if you don't want to print them yourselves, but I highly recommend just getting the digital version and printing those off for your kids. My little ones especially love to color along as they listen. They usually have 3 coloring pages per week, so it matches those 3 days that you'll be reading, and then they can color and illustrate. Sometimes I'll even print it not front and back so that the back will be blank and they can write a few notes of what they've learned on the back of the coloring sheet. And so that's just a fun way for them to interact with the material. But you can also get the questions in digital format. You could get the textbook in digital format. And you actually, something I've thought about doing for next year is getting the digital textbook and actually being able to stream it to my TV. So I can read along on my device, but my kids can see all those pictures and those images and those things as we're reading along with that. So lots of different options. I hope this helps. If you're feeling a little overwhelmed and uncertain what to get or how to prepare the material, check out this video here. But overall, I would highly recommend checking out Biblioplan for yourself. It has been a fantastic history for us and our family.